I think one of the things that came up is you explained to us like 80% of sexual violence is from people you know, which I didn't know that was the actual statistics on that. So I just wondered if you could like elaborate on that a little bit more and why it's people you know and that situation somebody could find themselves in.
And so this came up in our conversation around working exclusively with clients that we do or don't know, and do we do referrals for males, or how does that work?
Yes,
and so that's the context that we're talking about it in, and just being aware that majority of sexual violence that does occur that's reported is the perpetrator of that violence is someone that the victim knew. And that may have been someone they met earlier that night and had dinner with, or a conversation with at a bar, or it may be a friend or a family member, or a friend of a friend. And that's why sexual violence is a huge impact on people, because it's a breaking of trust.
Yes.
And so there's the physical act of it, but it's a huge breaking of fundamental trust between people that you know and you believe will look after you.
Yes.
And that's why it's such a huge impact on those people. And the reason for that as well is people that you trust and you believe will look after you come closer to you.
Yes.
And so you don't put your barriers, because you're like, oh no, that's a good person, because I know and I trust them and respect them. They would never harm me.
Yes.
And so that's the hard thing around sexual violence.
And I remember as well you were talking about how when sexual violence occurs between mutual friends, that the person who has been assaulted will be less likely to report that because they are mutual friends. So they feel like the person who assaulted them, the friend, will get upset and say, well, you're saying,
I can't believe that person would do that.
Yes, absolutely. And I truly believe that would
It's a massive tension out, like, if I'm reporting I'm a victim of sexual violence, and the person that did it is a friend of a friend as well, that third party friend may be, no, that person's awesome, they would never do that.
Yes.
And so it's,
you're in the middle.
Yeah, you have to justify yourself, not only to yourself and people else around you, but also to your friends who believe in the other person as well.
So we had a little bit of a moment of like, oh my god type thing, because we have been, for massages, we don't do male massages unless they're referred by an existing client. So if a client we trust and know says, I want to see my husband for a massage, we're like, sure, of course, because we trust that client, instead of having a stranger walk through the door. And there's a little bit of a moment of realization for us that was like, that's the exact situation you're talking about.
That we're putting ourselves in.
And so if something, like, let's say, God forbid, something happens that's inappropriate, I mean, how are we going to approach that existing client, and how are they going to react? So it is something to consider. And so I suppose what moves on from that is, if something does happen, how do you deal with that? So how do you deal with inappropriate behaviour during a therapy? And I'd heard a couple of ways to deal with it, which was leave the room, stop the therapy, say I'm leaving the room, get dressed, come out, you'll be paying and your therapy's over. And that was pretty much what we'd been advised to do. I already knew that part. There was another therapist on a forum that said, actually, I get the person to come away from the situation, go and get another person, another therapist, who then deals with the person, so that they're completely removed from the situation. They don't have to deal with that person that's maybe inappropriately touched them and they don't feel comfortable with anymore. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think the key thing is to have your own self-worth. And that no one client otherwise should be doing anything towards you that you don't feel comfortable with. So if someone's saying inappropriate stuff about their own personal life, or towards you directly, or they're touching you in a way that doesn't make you feel comfortable, that's not okay. It's a breach of your trust. And that needs to stop. And so just being confident in your own self-worth to say, no, I'm not comfortable with this. Or actually removing yourself, you need someone else to speak on your behalf and advocate for you. And just be really clear in that. For that to happen, you need to have a really good co-worker relationship and a really high trust on your co-workers for that to work effectively.
If your alarm bells go off or your warning bells go off, say you're in a therapy or whatever situation you're in, whether it be in a salon or not, quite often your instinct is, or your gut is right, but then in those situations you second guess yourself and go, was that actually an incident, or is that okay, or but you felt uncomfortable, so you should, like you say, be confident in yourself and have the self-worth to go, no, that's not okay, actually.
And so I think the key thing there is, if you've got a gut feeling on something, or you're feeling something isn't quite right. It probably isn't.
Yeah.
Like that's why you're feeling it, and whether that's because of the non-verbal communication between you and the other person, or whether that's the triggers you're hearing as well in your head, like, this doesn't make sense to me, this isn't okay.
Right.
It isn't, you know, and that's why it's worth just stopping whatever's happening and clarifying. And that clarification could be, I don't feel comfortable with this.
Yeah.
This needs to stop.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Or it could be removing yourself from the situation and someone else to advocate that. It's being really clear around it.
Yeah.
And I think the worst thing you could do is just try and suppress that gut feeling and continue that therapy.
Yes.
Because the person receiving the therapy is going to be feeling really awkward. Because you're all tense, so you're not feeling great about it and you're not putting out good vibes.
No.
And they know that you're not comfortable, they're not comfortable, but you're still continuing that treatment. And it's enabling them to continue to be inappropriate.
Yeah, right.
Because you're actually saying to them,
it's okay.
Yeah, you touched me in an inappropriate way. We both know this, but I'm continuing this therapy, therefore enabling you to do this continually now, but in the future with other therapists as well. So it's setting those precedents is really important.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, you know, it can actually be inappropriately verbal. You know, like somebody can say inappropriate things as well. And I mean, in my experience as a therapist, there's been several uncomfortable conversations where there's a line and it does get crossed, and you're just like, that was too much information. I didn't really need to know that much information. Where you go away and you leave a therapy and you feel really like, oh no, Judy, eh? You know, I mean, it sounds horrible, but you just feel really like it was just too much. You shouldn't have told me all of that. I mean, we all understand you go to a hairdresser and you go to a beautician and you talk about your life and your issues and stuff like that, but there is a certain line that I think that shouldn't be covered.
Or I think there's a certain way you can say things.
Yeah.
You know, there's a certain way you can say things.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say, you reminded me, Josh, as well, in the other situation where you have an experience that's before you go into a therapy, and so if something happens, like let's say something happens in the reception with another party, somebody else completely random who's come in, and then you have a therapy directly after that, and you were saying that if there is an incident, that it's actually not a good idea to be going into that therapy.
And again, it's for those same reasons that you'll be upset, you'll be tense, you'll be worried, you'll be thinking about what has happened beforehand, and you won't be fully focused on the client in front of you. And as well, if you're feeling really icky about something, then you're going to go into a massage or another treatment of someone, touching someone where you're feeling icky is going to transfer to them. And again, you're then potentially breaking a great client relationship. They may not come back, they may come back but feel a bit weird about it. Go home and tell their friends and family, like, it was really weird today with my therapist, and that's not good for you as a business. As well as on a personal level, then you've been involved with someone else on another negative experience, which will still sit with you as well.
I mean, you know, I mean, for an example of a situation when we had somebody come into the reception area inappropriately, make himself at home, you know, he was doing lashes, and after having an experience, you know, adrenaline pumps in. It's not immediate. You go back to that client, you start working, and then your hands start shaking because you have an adrenaline rush, and it's like, oh, you know, you realise
shouldn't have continued.
So you do need to like stop and take stock and actually, you know, have a moment, even if it had been just, so I just need 10 minutes just to slow down and calm down, and then go back, because you obviously can't send someone home with half a set of lashes.
Oh my god.
So we understand that, but I do think that we kind of are like so worried about getting back to the therapy and back to the person and carrying on,
when really that might not be the best thing for your client.
Or for you. So
or for you,
I think you do need that time out. I mean, when I worked in a call centre, you had a quiet room. When you had an aggressive, irate customer on the line, you went to the quiet room. You had some time for yourself, because you could actually just put yourself unavailable on the phones and go. You know, you can't really do that in person, but you know, I mean, I suppose it's feeling like you need to feel okay that you can, and you don't really get taught that at school. You get taught to be nice, and be on time, and look nice and do everything right, and so you don't really know whether you have permission to do that.
That's the thing.
And that comes back to that self-worth, you know, as an individual, but also as a professional. You need to have self-worth in your work, and in the way that what you need to be able to function as well. And that is having that space where you feel comfortable. And when that gets breached or gets treated really poorly, then you need to have time to be able to debrief on that, reflect on that, and just relax, you know. And if you're in the middle of a treatment for a client and something happens in the lobby, and you come up and you deal with it in the reception area, then it's going back and telling your client that's in the middle of a treatment, something just happened, can I have this time, I just need to deal with this, and maybe if they've even gone already, but you still need to be able to have a time, sit down. I advise drinking water. Water is a great thing to have. Like, I use it before the young people I work with who have anger issues, to carry around the drink bottle or some water. When you drink it, it soothes you, and you can't drink it when you're really angry because you start to choke on the water. So it's a bit of a relaxant, but a mental acknowledgement, actually I'm really pissed off right now. I shouldn't be doing this work because I can't even drink a glass of water.
Gotcha.
And then it's, okay, I now need to talk to my fellow therapist to make sure this client's going to be okay. And if it's a treatment that hasn't yet started, or is at the very end of and actually is fine, just apologising to that client and saying, let's book another time, we won't charge you for today. Come back and we can do the treatment again.
They could have overheard it, they could have witnessed it, it's affecting them as well. So
that's right.
I mean, it's acknowledging.
And you want them to feel comfortable.
To come back.